To tell this story, we must go back many years in time. I was but a young sapling in the midst of a great tropical forest, full of a rich variety of trees of many scents and smells, inhabited by wild animals and a multitude of birds. And then men arrived. Savagely, trees were felled and deforestation began. Over the years, the land was laid bare, exposed to the sun, flayed by the winds, and washed by the torrential monsoon rains. Soon the land was but a red desert, and I, as luck would have it, a rare survivor. The only visits I had were those of herders. I sheltered them from the sun while their livestock foraged in the bush. I was resigned, and the world seemed as if freeze-framed for eternity. Solitary, I simply strove to survive, up to the day when... But that's where our story begins.
It's the end of the 60s, and we are many who are fascinated by India and another way of looking at the world. Many attempt the journey, but we are a small band of varying nationalities, strangely drawn to a desert plateau overlooking the Bay of Bengal on the Coromandel coast. Moved by a great idea and the thought of Sri Aurobindo, and sustained by an immense force, that of Mira Alfasa, whom everyone here calls the Mother. But the way promises to be hard. Very early on, we decide to build a symbol to mark our union, but also to serve as a rallying point for all people of goodwill upon the earth. This symbol is the Matrimandir, the home of the Mother. We invest all our energies into this task. Swiftly, thanks to the Mother's radiance, our determination has a ripple effect in the world. Auroville is inaugurated on February the 28th, 1968. 124 nations are represented, and the world is on the move.
Sponsored by UNESCO, on a suggestion by India, Auroville is conceived as a bridge between the past and the future. When complete, it will be a city of 50,000 people devoted to the proposition that truth is manifest and realizable.
In 1973, the Dalai Lama comes to support us in our undertaking. Our city is still but a desert, the Matrimandir in the foundation phase of its construction, but we have already begun to want to bring back life to this earth.
Heat and drought, I've learned to deal with. My roots, tangled as Kali's hair, dig deep into the earth to extract some humidity. Intrigued, but with a slight sense of disquiet, I observed these newcomers. They had no water or roots. White as ghosts and wearing hats, they seemed ill-equipped to take on this ravaged environment.
I came quite at the beginning of Auroville, I think. I live in Kodakrai. I was born in Kodakrai. When I first remember of childhood, it was desert, basically. There were no trees. You could see the ocean from Kodakrai. From Matrimandir, if you stood on the first platform, you could see the ocean. And you could see the bus going from the road, which was then a small road, which Madras, Pondi bus. Open ground. There used to be the sandstorms here, which would just go like a tornado and take off, cover everything in sand. We have to run and hide under the closest hut or whatever you find to get away from the dust.
There were just a few trees here and there, and So we got in a natural way into getting vegetation on the land because we needed a place to live where it was livable. So our reforestation basically started because we needed some shade.
We soon understood a simple truth, that water is essential, and without it no future is possible. The way we used water would be a battle of each instant on which the survival and the future of our project depended. We dominated the sea from a height of 50 meters, and each monsoon torrents of water would be unleashed, causing untold havoc and damage, carrying away everything in their rush, scouring the earth with deep canyons, dragging all hope of vegetation into the sea. We had to tame this water at all costs. The monsoon could sometimes be very violent, and we had very little experience, and our first dams, too weak and placed too low on the watershed, were swept away like straw. We had to begin again from zero. Wiser from this experience, we decided to retain the water higher up on the plateau. It's after all more logical, but it took us a while to understand. For this, we constructed a multitude of earthen dikes, a bit like terraced rice fields in tropical lands. These dikes channeled the water flow and ensured that our reforestation and planting attempts were not in vain.
So what is important from the start is that we bund the land properly, which was done already in the former times. It was the easiest to do and also very efficient. You try to keep the water on the land.
This is sort of paradise for somebody who makes bunds. There's a lot of work to do. So this is a pretty good example of contour bunding. This is a little hill slope. So all along the slope you'll see bunds at about 10 to 15 meters spacing. So they lay on the contour, so they trap the water behind each bund and keep it here on the hill. And between the bunds we've done forestation. We've planted indigenous vegetation.
There we were, fully involved in this undertaking. Each plot of Auroville would thus be divided and taken care of. An idea that was simple, efficient and economical. Water management was only just beginning. One had to go much farther. The land still denuded of trees could not retain the water, and we had to create water catchment ponds. It was in this way that we transformed ourselves into builders of dams. Dams of all sorts were erected wherever the water's flow might prove a danger and wherever we had planted trees. They remain a mainstay of water management in Auroville. Some of these constructions are exemplary in their combination of local technology and their efficiency in retaining water.
So what we did here is we did a series of earth check dams, one there and one there, and they're connected with overflow channels. So when the canyon over there fills up, water overflows through this channel, overflow again into the next one, and so there's a whole series of dams like this. In a chain of dams like this, the last one is usually a masonry overflow.
This contour bunding work would have profound repercussions on the ecosystem, raising the humidity, bringing the temperature down significantly, and allowing for a more efficient reforestation.
course, when there are torrential rains, the bunds can break or flow over, and then still the water goes into the canyons. And the water is coming from that side, see it over there. So this canyon is made by rain, by human hands actually, because we denuded the whole area. I discovered during the monsoon that the sea was still red with red soil. So a lot of water, rainwater, with red soil was disappearing into the sea. I've been working from the beginning till the end with many check dams in between, small ones and bigger ones at the end.
Canyons, those deep scars gouged out by successive monsoons, are today being brought under control, thanks to the building of bunds, columns and check dams. Columns? They fulfill the task of large capacity reservoirs. They can stock, the monsoon permitting, large quantities of water. This water, instead of escaping to the sea, has the time to permeate into the soil and recharge the aquifers. But the struggle here continues because either water is too scarce or it is too abundant.
Normally this red soil would have been washed into the sea. Now it just stays here, it builds up. But also the seeds, they germinate. So this whole area will be greening in the coming years.
Water management cannot be limited to Auroville alone. It concerns a much larger bioregion. Thus we work on rehabilitating village tanks, an ancient system of irrigation that helped counter periods of drought without exhausting the aquifers. Unfortunately, over the years, this aquatic spiderweb was no longer properly maintained and lost all its efficiency. We have also, over the last years, undertaken in Auroville surrounding bioregion an important water studies program with the GIS mapping support of ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization, with the goal of understanding how aquifers work and tackling the problem of saline intrusion.
I'm a professor assistant from University of Paris 6, and I coming in January 1999 in this area because they have a problem about the water resource and the water quality. They notice an increase of the salinity together with a fall down of the water level. Since many years with harvest, they are collecting data, very useful data, and they're starting to build GIS, it means Geographical Information System, which help us to have a better knowledge of the whole water cycle. And now we have some good data that can be exploited and interpreted to better quantify and better determine the evolution in time of the salinization of the area. What is very important here in India, and more especially in this area of Auroville, is due to the support of Harvest, who help us with the logistic and the data collection and the field measurement. We are working in a pilot area which could be extending all along the Bay of Bengal in India at least. And I think that point is very important and useful for those people who are concerned here.
For once, men did not seem bent on destroying everything. I'm even beginning to feel less isolated, as I see here and there, as if by miracle, trees take root. The story of the ghosts with hats was taking on colors.
It was thousands of trees that we planted. Everyone got involved in the task, men, women, children, the majority of whom had never planted a tree before. Nonetheless, despite adverse conditions, the young saplings grew, and Auroville once again turned green.
So when you have a deserted area and you try to restore the environment, what you are doing first is basically surgery. Is that the land has been destroyed and wasted by man, and so it's like a wasted body that you have to repair. So this is why we call this surgery, you know, all this bonding and these dams and check dams. So this is a very important point. Water conservation is done by the forest, is done by nature, with the help of our surgery. That is the point.
When we started the afforestation in Auroville, nobody knew anything about plants. I personally had never looked at a plant before I came to Auroville. So we learned initially most things from our neighbors in the Tamil villages. They taught us how to deal with the land, what crops to grow, what trees grow around us. We made a lot of mistakes. We planted ornamental trees in very difficult conditions, so not much survived sometimes in the early years. Over the years we gradually learned more and more. We started studying the forests around us, and since about 9 or 10 years we've been studying intensively the local forest type, which is known as tropical dry evergreen forest. So we find little remnants, bits and pieces of this forest, and we've spent years tracing little pieces of it that are remaining, and we study those. We do botanical surveys, study when the different species flower and fruit. We collect the seeds, we propagate them in our nurseries, and since a number of years we introduced these tropical dry evergreen species in our forests.
This is the Revelation Sanctuary. This part has been started 12 years ago. So it was a complete desert. The soil was like brick, red soil, totally eroded, no humus, no topsoil. We started to plant the pioneer forest, and it produced a large amount of biomass, so it helps to recreate the humus. And 5 years later, we started to have a canopy, and then we could introduce the secondary species, which are only the indigenous species. And so we reintroduced all these mainly evergreen species that are shade species. We reintroduced them in the shade of these pioneers that we put 5 years before. You cannot reforest completely the whole planet, so you have to create sanctuaries, green reserve, and then it's the birds between these sanctuaries that will carry the seeds in between the sanctuaries.
The main aim of the planting of this type of forest in Auroville is basically to have one secure place where we have this forest growing. It's like a future gene pool. If anybody ever in the future wants to use these trees again, plant them, then in Auroville we have at least one place that is secure where plant material can be taken for future work and future projects.
The forest has an impact on the percolation of water. It is basically the forest who is the key of the hydrological cycle on the planet and the key to our reserve of water and the key to the climate. So today we are in a global climate change, and it is basically the forest who is going really to restore, who is going to help us to restore a proper balance, ecological balance on the planet, a proper climatic balance.
Of course, men's awkwardnesses still make me sigh at times. I have my trees' vision of things, and they have their way of seeing things. But at least the earth had begun to live again. Let's just say that I was not displeased to see them, in their ways, take root upon this earth.
In order to take shelter from the sun and the monsoons, we first created communities. That is a collection of simple dwellings, straw-roofed huts erected around a water source and a common kitchen. With time, some began to build individual houses. Others, more adventurous, remained resolutely wedded to experimentation. The first collective buildings, schools, theaters, restaurants, set the frame for the nascent city. At this time, we had little or no electricity at all, and we therefore had to find alternative solutions for our energy needs. We tried to tackle the problem in a number of ways. First, by building windmills to pump well water and to supply electricity. For this, we were inspired by the ancient Cretan windmill. Of course, it was somewhat rudimentary and difficult to get going and erect. But if there was wind, it worked. Then our windmill technology became more refined, and today our Windmill Research Center is the only one existing in India. We have installed over 30 windmills in Auroville, as well as in Karnataka, Coimbatore and South Arcot. The government of Tamil Nadu encourages the building of windmills with funding grants. At the same time, we have developed biogas as an energy source for cooking and lighting. It is simple, economical, and we produce the ferrocement domes ourselves. One of the advantages of biogas is the possibility to stock this form of energy.
So this is the gas holder where the gas is stored. This is the inlet, so the dung from the bullock and the kitchen waste gets mixed here with water and goes through the pipe into the container which is set in the ground. The spent slurry comes out on the other side, and that we use to make our own compost. And the gas is piped underground to the kitchen, where we have a special biogas stove on which we do all our cooking.
The rain, earth, wind, and sun nourished me. In return, I contributed to the natural balance and equilibrium. But what of men?
From the beginning of our adventure, we set ourselves the goal of being self-sufficient in food needs. Of course, there was no question of our using pesticides or any type of chemical fertilizers. Our researches are consciously oriented towards organic agriculture.
Annapurna is 135 acres, which we basically grow dryland crops and some wetland crops in the monsoon. The idea is to grow as much as possible food for Auroville. We work with traditional varieties, traditional grains, pulses, oilseeds. We keep our own seeds. We do sometimes some selection. We have a small seed bank in the paddy, in the rice. So from there we just select and we try to see that we improve over time. The idea is to have, let's say, very healthy soil. Healthy soil here in the tropics, I think, is basically no chemicals and lots of organic matter. With that organic matter you create soil life, and soil life somehow does it itself. We try to use as much as possible rainwater. We have 3 water catchment ponds here, which have some capacity about 25,000 cubic meters we can store. So we catch rain and we pump it back into the field. We think the water from the ponds, which is pure rainwater, is much better for the plants. We can also see the results.
So welcome to the Auroville Botanical Garden. Here it's a vegetable seed bank project where we try to conserve, multiply and disseminate ancient variety of vegetables which are reproducible by the farmers. We are obviously completely organic, using organic technique of cultivation. Actually we are pretty much close to demonstrate that within an organic system we can produce as much as a chemical system and a conventional system. It's a bit the aim of that research center here, is to demonstrate that organic is viable and productive.
In temperate climates, we have trees that reach a height of 40 meters, and if you analyze the soil, it is quite rich. 50% of the nutrients are found in the plants and 50% in the soil. In tropical climates, you have trees that reach a height of 80 meters, and if one analyzes the soil, it is extremely poor. How is it that the poorest soils of the planet sustain the highest vegetation? There is a paradox here. Because temperatures in tropical climates are so high and the rains torrential, all the nutrients are mineralized, swept away, burnt, because the metabolisms are both significant and very rapid. Nature has found an answer to this tropical phenomenon by pushing upwards all the nutrients into biomass. That is, all the nutrients are constantly transforming biomass, because if one leaves them in the soil, they do not remain, they disappear swiftly. So we create biomass. We cut it, it redecomposes because metabolisms are very rapid. We never leave the soil bare. So we have a mixture of plants that work the soil for us. They put down hundreds of meters of roots into the soil. They fill it up. We cut, but without uprooting. So all those roots that are in the soil decompose. And all that we cut we leave on the surface. It becomes the forest ground cover and will continue to nurture the soil, control humidity and reduce evaporation.
Over the years, I have become important. Men have taken to coming and silently meditating under my boughs and foliage. I learned to partake of their presence.
With the appearance of the first trees and a bit more coolness, life organizes itself. We become a little more civilized. The Matrimandir has grown with us and has now completely emerged from the earth. It is our pride, as well as a mirror of our evolution. This construction brings us a lot, as much on the technical as on the spiritual plane. We gain a lot of force from it. The days go by, exhausting, but leaving in us an ineffable sense of a taste of creation and the conviction that while attempting to forge an example for future generations, we are in the process of participating in a true human laboratory.
Below me, there is more and more excitement. Drawn by this unique experiment, men arrive from all countries, bringing new cultures and know-how. At day's end in the early evening, more and more of them come to rest at my feet. So I listen to the musical murmur of their mix of tongues.
"20 years of existence. Today, Auroville is largely reforested, and it is possible for us to begin imagining production and harvesting. Thus the commerce of wood begins. It brings in some income for the community and resurrects carpentry work in the surrounding villages, allowing the most deprived a steady supply of kindling wood without endangering the forests. Equally, we could not have imagined the richness constituted by seeds and grains. Thanks to our expertise in this domain, we have been able to conduct seed exchanges not only in India, but throughout the world. A considerable amount of work has been done in the classification of seeds. A lot of work has been invested in the health sector as well. Researchers tapping traditional Indian culture, such as Ayurvedic medicine, are in liaison with villages and Indian doctors to conduct important educational work and research on medicinal plants.
From the early 70s, we started going out into the area near to Auroville to find the seeds of the plants that we knew should be here, were needed to be over this plateau. We discovered the sacred groves, the remnant forests, the little patches, roadsides, and that led us to discover this, what we call the bioregion, let's say an area 50 kilometers out from Auroville. Now there's hardly any plants in this whole area that don't have medicinal properties, but what that led to, that detailed analysis of the medical flora, led us to meet with the people to understand the uses of the plant, and started a whole program of also revitalizing the local health traditions. Through that we started working with, together, perhaps 60 villages. In getting to know these villages, we could also see a lot of problems, challenges, whether it was the aggressive use of pesticide, or whether it was the granite mining, or whether it was